This afternoon I am with Karin and Thomas, in their home here in San Antonio, and y'all are doing something interesting dealing with languages. Which of you would like to explain what you do?
Well, we're amigos out at the Defense Language Institute at Lackland Air Force Base here in San Antonio. And the Air Force looks for people to be amigos. They teach them English, so then they can go on to follow-on training. They're people from all different countries of the world, top military people, and so we interact with them, become friends with them, develop fellowships with them, take them shopping, visit with them at the base, have them over for dinner, just to get to know.
So they kind of get to know the American culture. I'm assuming you predominantly speak English, so therefore they have to speak English, and that would kind of help them with their language skills?
Correct.
All right.
Yeah.
How many years have y'all been doing that?
27.
Wow.
And we've been involved with 60 different people, military from 60 different countries over those years.
Is the Amigo program something that's only here in San Antonio, or is it around in other areas as well?
The specifically Amigo program is at DLI, but when they go on to their
Now
follow-on
DLI stands for?
Defense Language Institute,
All right, thank you.
when they go on to their next course, their other military training that this is preparatory for, then at some of the bases, not all of them, but at some of the bases they have through the International Military Student Office, they'll have sponsors for them. And it's not as active usually as it is here. And some of them, when they go to bases where they don't have somebody like us, they're very sad because they want to know some Americans.
Yeah.
It's kind of like having some family while they're in the States, and so it's
Kind of like an exchange student almost, type, taking them into your home to some degree. Yeah.
And during their follow-on training, they mix in with American soldiers. So during the day, they have acquaintances with Americans, but oftentimes they often do not.
How long of a period of time are they generally here to learn the language?
that depends on what their English is when they get here, because they have to have some when they get here. Almost never do they come starting at zero.
Okay.
So it depends on what their level of English is when they get here, and it depends on what level of English they need when they go to their next course. And that depends on what the course is. Somebody that's going to logistics training does not need the kind of score that a pilot trainee will need, because they're not endangering their own life or somebody else's. Somebody that's going to infantry training may not need as high a score as somebody that's going to go to war college. So that just depends on what their level of English is when they get here and what kind of qualifying score they need for when they go on.
Generally, it's 2 months up to a year and a half, maybe. They'll be in the States.
Two months is usually the minimum, because they get specialized training for follow-on. But it could be longer than that. And then some of them don't go on from here. Some of them are here to be English instructors in their country.
Oh.
So when they do that, they have a period of general English, just again, depending on how good their English is when they get here. Could be up to 6 months. And then they have 6.5 months of instructor training. And then they go home, they're home for 2 years generally, and then they can possibly come back for advanced instructor.
Have you had some return?
We've had a lady from Mongolia that's been here, what, 5 or 6 times?
Six times. But we've got a lot of Afghans right now who have come or back for second or third time, so that's nice to see them again.
You said over the 27 years that you've had representatives from 60 different countries. How many people have you been an amigo to?
Thousands, over 1,000, I guess, right?
We've had, just in Afghans, we've had probably 500 or 600.
Wow.
And one thing people should know is they don't live with us, they live at the base.
Okay.
So we haven't had 500 or 600 different people in our house in the last few years. But we've had a lot of them. From Honduras, we've probably had 250 or so, and Albania, we've had a lot. It just
depends on what's going
we don't
on
know
in
how
the world.
many.
The militaries, like Honduras was having the Contra War, so they sent a lot of students here. Afghanistan now is sending a lot of military here, so it depends on the conflicts going on in the world.
What, wow, what an interesting experience to have people that culturally are very, very different than the American culture. What type of, do they ask questions? How do they respond to the difference in our culture?
They're very interested in it. Some of them come with their culture in their mind and they don't want to question anything about their culture. But others come wanting to know, they want new ideas, and so there's a lot of discussion. When we started sponsoring the students from Afghanistan, we knew nothing, absolutely nothing about that part of the world.
What
So-
have you, all right, what have you
About their
learned?
religion, about
Well,
their
about,
religion.
about anything, I mean, just their daily life. I have a stack over there of books. There's actually 2 stacks of books concerning Afghanistan. We've got plenty of stuff to read, and you know, we research on the internet, and we ask them lots of questions. And we're at the point with them now where they'll say to us, oh, I don't have to explain this to you, you understand our culture. So, and generally when they say that, I do know what they're gonna talk about, so.
So what have you found? I'm going to turn this around a little bit. What have you found most interesting about the Afghani culture?
Oh, the way they live is very interesting. You know, we live all over the place separately. They all live with their father's family. The sons, when they get married, they all live bring their wives and their children. They all live in the same house.
Wow.
Which one of them said he had, like, with his brothers and sisters, he had 45 living in their house.
How large of a home?
3-story home, you know, they're
And they'll
good
add
sized
on.
homes, yeah. But I said, and your brothers all have wives, all the wives, how do they get along? He said, oh, they're okay.
Sometimes it's not real good.
So we learned about
Generally,
that.
I think they're
That's
okay.
an interesting part of their culture, yeah.
One of the things that surprised me, because I had all of the stereotypes in my mind of what they were going to be, I've told them, I know you came to the United States with ideas about what Americans are like, because you've seen movies and television shows that don't present us in a really lovely light, and then you come and find out we're not like what you thought we were. But I had ideas about what Afghans were like, and I thought that Afghan men were all kind of wild men running around in the mountains with guns. And
True.
I don't have any problem with the wild men shooting the bad guys, but that's the only picture I had in my mind. And then the first Afghan student that we had, he wanted to have discussions about American history, American government, all kinds of things like
Interesting.
that. And one day he said to me, Mom, do you have any books on constitutional law?
Now he called you Mom.
They all call me Mom.
Okay, wonderful.
He said, do you have any books on constitutional law? I said, I'm sorry, Ahmad Shah, but you have vastly overestimated me. I don't have any books on constitutional law. I can get you some stuff.
So they're very
But it's
intelligent people.
they're not like what I thought. And I thought that they all didn't care about their daughters. We've got guys that just adore their little girls. They've got pictures of them on as the wallpaper on their computers and stuff. They adore their little boys too. But that surprised me, because I thought everybody in Afghanistan, they didn't want anything to do with daughters, and they're not all like that.
Are
There
they
some.
predominantly Muslim?
Yes.
Okay.
Afghanistan is almost exclusively Muslim.
And so are they what I would call the traditional Muslims, where the women are all in the burqas and all of that, or no?
Depends on the family.
Yeah, mostly not, but
Depends on
Okay.
the family. They'll all wear the scarf over their head
All
and
right.
stuff, but mostly.
another thing we learned, you said they call Karin Mom, is that in their family, their father is like a dictator. What he says go, you don't question anything. So to me, they're very on the surface, yeah, stand backish, but she's their mother. She calls her mom, and they tell her everything. She can get just about anything out of them. But with me, it takes a while for them to trust me and to confide in me a little bit, so.
Okay, interesting. So from your observation then, are they more standoffish with other men? Out of that same type of concern,
Not
or
with
is
each
it?
other.
Okay,
Not with, it's an older man.
an older man.
That they stand at attention for but older women are moms, and so they can relax and say what they're thinking, and so I have the opportunity to get more into their lives than Tom does, because they won't, if we're sitting in one of their rooms visiting, if it's just me, oh, we talk about everything, but if Tom's there, then they wait for him to say and direct.
Elbow him.
Yeah,
And
Yeah.
they respect all the people, which is.
hugely, they respect
Which
older
is
people.
great to be involved with, yeah.
Something we don't see as much in our culture here today.
It's something they're horrified by. That's something about our culture that they just don't get that part.
I think how it's changed since we were
Yeah,
kids.
yeah.
And I'm guilty of, you used to always say, yes ma'am, no sir, and open doors. I do that. But a lot of the other, we've just eased it on out and become more, less formal with one another. And I think that is a breakdown on the
Less
respect.
respect,
Yeah, less respect for sure.
yeah.
So what kind of things, Mom, do they want to discuss with you? What kind of things are on their mind?
A lot of things, yeah.
If I told you all of it, you'd fall out of your chair in shock.
Oh my.
And they will call and say things that it just surprises me that they want to talk about. And I don't mean that they're trying to involve me in something dirty or something. They just
Their boundaries are different than
their
ours.
boundaries are different. And we had a guy that needed to have a colonoscopy, and so the doctor explained to him. I went with him because he wasn't understanding everything the doctor was telling him. So I took him to the appointment. The doctor explained to him that whole procedure you have to go through before a colonoscopy. And he wasn't going to have it until 1 o'clock in the afternoon, and so that meant he had to start the little cocktail stuff late, and so the last half of it he was going to drink at about 7 in the morning, and he turns to me, he says, "So Mom, I could go to class that morning." I said, "No, you can't go to class." So he hadn't understood anything.
Oh, wow.
And I said, "No, you can't go to class. Why not?" So I told him. And his eyes went big. He says, "Okay, I won't go to class." I won't go to class.
But we're involved in their lives, everything from medical help to buying computers, cameras, telling them about how to get in contact on computers and stuff like that.
I mean, it's down to small things like, how do you mail a package? They don't know about mailing things to people. Like if they have somebody that's in the States that's a friend of theirs that was in Afghanistan and they want to send them something, they don't, well, you go over to the post office. Where's the post office and what's
Do they
the
not
post
have
office?
something similar over there?
Not in the way that we have it, apparently. I don't know exactly what they do I mean, they know how to send things from their country, but they don't. And another thing that's kind of interesting is that that culture runs so much on tradition, as is the case with most or all of that part of the world. This is how we do things, and there's not much asking of questions about what's outside of what they have normally experienced. We have some that will do that, but you need to almost, and when I say provoke, I don't mean in a mean way, but provoke that kind of thinking, because
They've never been exposed to
they're
it.
told what to think, and they shall not think anything outside the box.
And they're they've been involved, most of these young guys have been involved in war all their lives in their country, so.
There's been war going on in Afghanistan since 1978 when the Russians came in.
How early are guns, rifles put in their hands? Or
I
whatever
don't
they're
know.
called?
I don't know, but the bigger part is that they have to be on guard all the time. All the time. They have to be watchful. Which makes it hard when they come here, because it's hard for them to focus their attention on one thing and keep it there for any length of time. Because they are so accustomed to being on guard. I've said to some of them, "How does it feel to you to be in the United States?" And every single time I've asked that, they've said, "I feel like I'm in heaven. For the first time in my life, I'm not having to watch to see if somebody's going to shoot me." And we're talking about guys 45 years old. We've got 3 colonels out there right now that are 45 years old, between about 45 and 48. And they have all grown up that way.
Tell us terrible stories, yeah, terrible stories of what they've experienced.
Can you share a story?
We had one guy,
Let me, I'm gonna have you restart. Okay, go ahead.
we had a guy here who was telling us that when the Russians came through his village, he was a kid, and his mom hid him and his brothers and sisters in among a bunch of bags of flour so that they wouldn't be seen. But on that day, the Russians killed 64 members of his family, including both of his parents. And he started naming names, just like a list. Went through about 20 names of aunts and uncles and cousins. And then he stopped and he said, well, Mom, you get the idea. He said in that day, 700 people in his village were killed.
Wow.
When they say village, they don't mean, 10 houses. That it'll maybe a good sized town, but 700 people in one day were killed by the Russians. We had another guy who said he and his family were eating breakfast one morning and they heard the Russian planes coming, which meant they were going to get bombed. It's a little town, I mean, no strategic anything, just that's what they did. And he said we had an underground shelter and we ran and got into the underground shelter, as did lots of other people in their own shelters. And he said when it finally got quiet up above, we came out and there was nothing left of our village. Not a tree, not a house, not an anything. Everything was wiped out.
Like a tornado would come through.
We can't imagine what they've been through. Cannot imagine it.
So it's a whole new world for them when they come here for training.
Yeah. Yeah, we can't imagine that. How, and watching them and their uneasiness, have you discovered anything to help them relax? Would that be a good word? To just kind of let that edge off for a little bit?
I don't know how to.
You've
I mean,
talked to
just to be
several of them,
kind to them. I've talked with a lot of them about it. Just talking to them about. I know that when you're home, you have to keep on guard all the time, but while you're here, you don't. And when you don't, it's to the detriment of your training, both here and at follow-on. You have got to be able to put your attention on your studies and keep them there. And you can train your mind to some degree to pull back and pay attention to what you've got to pay attention to at that moment. And I've told him about a guy that we had that was here for a medical course, and he was here for over a year. And he had to be able to put his mind on the course or he would have been in trouble.
Mm-hmm.
He wouldn't have made it. And so when he realized that his mind was diverting all the time, because he said, I would sit there and study. I've heard this story lots of times. Sit there and study and a memory comes into my mind and I'm thinking about that and then realize, oh no, I have to study. And and they have bad dreams, and it's, now when you meet them, they're nice guys, perfectly normal, have a conversation and stuff. But you will notice that when you start to try to, like this one guy asked me a question about a presentation that he was going to have to do, and he didn't have any information on it. He asked the question, and before I could say, well, he's off to something else. And I said, stop right now. You have to learn to focus. You're not going to make it through. He was going to do a really high-power follow-on course. And I said, you have got to focus. So you sit down and you asked a question. You need to know the answer. Sit down. Listen. He sat down in front of me. He had folded his hands in his lap. And he was literally quivering. He was trying so hard to stay sitting down and not move and keep his mind on what we were there for. It was so hard for him. But I tell them, you can notice that about yourself and say, no, I have to put my attention here. And after a while, the amount of time that you can keep your attention on something will start to get a little bit longer and a little bit longer. But it's hard.
So the impact of continuously, I guess, truly, they grow up continuously being at war and survival and all of that, and so you you're saying that that is driving their lack of being able to stay focused. Um, as they're here, you say some are up to a year and a half. Does that ease any, or is it just so entrenched into them they never can really gain that true focus?
I think some of them get a little more relaxed if they're here long enough, that they get a little more relaxed. If they're here, if this is the most relaxing part of the time that they'll have here, except for that qualifying test. When they get to follow on training, it's 24/7 pressure as far as the academics and if they're going to infantry training or
Tough on
ranger school or
physically,
something,
yeah.
that's a lot of physical stuff, but once they've passed their qualifying test, then they're better. But this is the most relaxed part. If they have enough time here, some of them get a little more relaxed.
What kind of, think I may have asked this earlier, but I kind of want to go there again if I did. What kind of questions do they ask y'all about why we do things the way we do? I mean, I would think that they question because they're coming out of such a rigid structure, self-preservation and family and culture and religion. What kind of things get their attention first here?
One of the big things is how we take care of our elderly parents. That's a huge issue to them. And they think that because most of the time our parents don't live with us, I don't mean us personally, I mean in general, that we don't care. And so to get across the fact that yes, we do care, I tell them all the time, in America we have a national document called the Declaration of Independence, but generally Americans have their own personal Declaration of Independence. And they want to have their own place. They don't want to live in somebody else's home. They want to have their own place. So, for instance, with my mom, I'm over there over and over and over all week to help her with things and check on her and do things with her. But she wants to have her place because that's things about her life. And I take students over there fairly regularly, or Tom and I'll take them over there for dinner in the dining room thing there. And they are amazed. Every single time that we do that, they tell us, this is the best tour I've been on since I've been in San Antonio.
Wow.
Because they get a whole different picture of American life.
And they don't have any nursing homes in their country. Remember I told you they live all together, they take care of each other that way.
Yeah.
And if they come to our house, they tour our house and say, who else lives here? You know,
Exactly.
Just Karen and I.
Sorry.
They go, oh, you have room for all of us.
Where are your children? Well, one's in Houston and one's in Alabama. That's what we do here.
We've
That's
invited her mother to live with us. She won't live with us, you know.
Mm-hmm.
So then when we take her to visit her mother, they understand a little better.
Well, another thing that they understand, they think everybody in the United States is divorced. Before they come here, they think everybody's divorced.
Interesting. Where is that coming from?
Well, what do they see on the stuff that we send out?
Well, all of the Hollywood.
Yes, exactly. And
Yeah.
that's their idea of the United States, is what they see from Hollywood.
True.
So then they come and, you know, they'll ask something about us, and I say, well, in June we will have been married 48 years. 48 years, really? You've been married for, yes, we've been married for, oh.
And he's only had one wife.
Yeah, yeah.
That's huge.
Yeah, because that's how we stayed married for 48 years. But then I take them over to my mom's, and my mom has a whole wall of pictures, family pictures, in her bedroom. And so I'm showing them who this is and who this is. And okay, that's my parents. And that picture is of them on their 60th wedding anniversary. They were married for 65 years when my dad died. And there's my aunt, my mom's sister, and her family. And she and my uncle were married for 62 years, and my grandparents were married for 70 years, and we for 48, and our daughter's been married for 22, and our son for 20, and so
Wow.
on. And so that
Beautiful
changes
heritage.
perception.
It's a amazement to them, yeah.
It changes their perception, because they have kind of a joke that DLI, Defense Language Institute, DLI really stands for Divorced Ladies Institute, because so many of the teachers are divorced. So they just assume, okay, that's how it is.
And it's one of the good
We know
things
there's
we want to
divorced
show
people.
them. But that's one of the good things we want to show them, that Americans are mostly like us, you know.
They are not adventurous about food. They want to eat their food. For a while we were doing a thing over here where we would invite a bunch of them, and we would borrow this 15-passenger van from our church and get a bunch of them, bring them over here, and we'd have an American thing. We'd have a bunch of
Hamburgers
Americans over, chips
Fried
and,
chicken, yeah.
and potato salad, and we'd have stuff out so they could build their own ice cream
Traditions.
sundae. Yeah.
Yeah.
They didn't eat much. It dawned on me after a while that they probably were thinking hamburgers means ham. So I explained that to them all the time. That doesn't mean it has ham in it. It means it was invented, the sandwich is invented in Hamburg, Germany. There is no pork in a hamburger,
Yeah.
it is beef. Then somebody told me, well, you also better tell them about hot dogs. There's no dog.
Oh, God. Oh, no. Oh, no.
Yeah. But they didn't eat much when I did that. They ate very little when we would have one of those. They were very happy to be around everybody and
To
stuff,
be at
but
our
they
house,
were
yeah.
kind of
Uh-huh.
hesitant about what they ate. So I thought, okay, maybe I need to learn to make some Afghan foods. So I got on the internet and downloaded, I don't know how many recipes of different Afghan foods. And then I talked to a couple of the guys and said, okay, out of this stuff, what do you think I should make to do an Afghan dinner? And they told me. So periodically we have Afghan dinners, and I make a mountain and a half of rice. It's a really neat rice
Their type
dish.
of rice, yeah.
And we have barbecued chicken and salad and some other stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And they're thrilled out of their minds, and they eat like
Mama's
wild beasts.
cooking.
Yeah, Mom's cooking Afghan food. Now we're good to go.
And when they step in the house, one of the guys said, "This smells like my home."
Oh.
So, and while they eat, their dessert deal is to have a big platter with dried fruits and nuts and some candies and stuff on it. So I put that out, and they all come and are getting all of that stuff. And then I go in the bedroom and put on my Afghan dress, which is something to behold. it's not a burqa thing. It's unbelievable.
And I have
I'll show it to you later.
Afghan kind of a coat or
It's called a chapan, the thing like Karzai wore all the time over his shoulders. Tom has one that's
That's a good
brown.
looking.
the student give me with one of their hats on. So we come out dressed like that.
And they applaud.
Ah.
Every
we
time.
want to take pictures with
Yeah,
us. And
it's pretty fun.
You're my American parents.
Well, some of them tell me, I told my mom in Afghanistan, don't worry about me, I have a mom here.
Oh, wow. Wow. So you say a lot of them have come back. Do they call immediately?
sure do. Yeah. Before they come, they call to tell us.
Some of them call before they
Yeah.
get here, but then we're out there so much that if we haven't heard from them on the phone,
You're going to see them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
right now, we have about 60 Afghan students.
Is your mom to 60?
Because they all know, even if they haven't been here before, they know about us before they get here.
They've heard.
Because word has gotten around. We joke about that we're probably national heroes. So that's been, not everybody, I should say, we are in this, it's our life. You know, we're in it up to our eyeballs, but not everybody that does what we do does it to the degree that we do. This
Right.
has just kind of grown into a full-time ministry for us, but you know, it's
You
not
can
always
have
how
a
we
dinner
can
for
have
them
them
once a
over for
month.
dinner.
Or,
And
yeah.
just
You are
take
the
your family.
American ambassadors to the international students. I think that's a wonderful ministry to show them the American culture and life.
And it takes only 1 or 2 times for them to be with real Americans.
Not
Just
fake
say-
ones.
Well, not Hollywood.
Oh,
to
true.
get
Gotcha.
past the
Yes,
the
stereotype.
idea. We had a guy, one of the first students we sponsored was from Guinea in West Africa. And he's sitting there at our black man, sitting there at our table. He had studied in Russia for 18 months. And I said to him one evening at dinner, so how was it in Russia? He says, it was awful. He said, they treated me terrible. The women called me a little monkey. He said, he said it was really bad how they treated me.
Wow.
And I said, so how has it been for you here? And he just went, look, at our table.
Uh-huh.
And some of the
Different.
guys have told us that when they come over to have dinner or be with us, it's the best time they've ever had in their life. Several Chadians told us that just recently.
Long
It's
time.
been the best day they've had in their life.
Yeah, a long time ago we had a guy from Sudan, which South Sudan sends students now, but not Sudan, because of unpleasant things. But this guy from Sudan came over to our house for dinner for the first time. And we had another family and then a single man who had lived in Congo. So, you know, African continent, different, very different kind of place, but he was there. And we had dinner and just chatted and had a nice time together. And so then I was going to take him back to the base, and so when we get in the car to go, and this was early on in our career, and I was still kind of unsure of what you talk to people about and stuff. I found out you talk to them about the same things you talk to everybody else about. But,
True.
But at that time I did, so I said, what's been different about the United States than what you expected? And he said, oh, Mom, I wish I had the vocabulary. I don't know how to tell you what I want to say. I could say in my language, I don't have the vocabulary for it. I don't know the words. But I'll just tell you, this has been the best day of my life. And I thought, oh, dinner was good, but I didn't think it was that good. He went on and said, I came to the United States thinking what I have always been told in the newspapers, television, radio, people, that Americans are hard, cruel, horrible people. They shoot each other in the streets, especially in Texas. And so I'm thinking his family must have been terrified that he was coming to Texas.
The
But
Wild West.
he said, I got here and I found out, you know what? Americans, you want the same thing for your families that we want for our families. You want them to be safe. You want your kids to have an education. You just want to get along. It's the same. You care about your neighbors. You care about your families. This has been a very good day for me. And when I go back to my country, I'm going to tell people, it's not what you think. I've been there. And Americans are not what you think they are. Let me tell you about America.
You're an excellent ambassador for us. You've said you've predominantly had, the majority of them have been from Afghanistan. What have they expressed in regards to the war that's been going on there, and that since we've been involved with it? Do they share anything? Do they talk about the impact that has had on them and their families and their feeling toward Americans?
They love the Americans. They think their mentors hung the moon, the people that they work directly with.
They're translator for American military, or they're in operations with American military.
Yeah, the operational part
They
is
love
what
them.
because
They
the
love
Americans are
Americans,
training them just in everything that they do. So they've thought they think that's wonderful. The thing they have a hard time with concerning the Americans is that we go in there and say, okay, this is an example, for instance. There was one place, we're going to build a road here. The Americans are going to build a road from this city to this city. The Americans don't keep control over how the money is handled. So they just hand it to the government and say, build a road.
Oh.
The government contracts with somebody to build the road. That somebody scoops off what they want to keep, contracts with a subcontractor who scoops off, and that can go down like 4 or 5 levels before finally somebody says, okay, I'm going to build the road. And by that time there's hardly any money left, and they'll go out and smooth out the dirt a little bit and put about 1 inch of asphalt on it and say, there, I built the road. And of course in about a month or 2 months the road is gone. But the Americans built the road, and that looks bad because the Americans came up. We've seen pictures, you've got nice highways in your country and you come and build these shoddy roads in our country, or build schools, the same thing has happened. Build them so that when it starts to
Wow.
rain, the bricks melt, you know. We didn't personally do it, but we should have kept control over how the contracting was done and supervised it, and we don't, because our government thinks that that's imposing on their sovereignty. I think it's
Interesting.
imposing on our tax money, actually, but
True. It sounds like we're funding a couple of contractors or so over there.
And I think our US aid is probably very similar to that scenario she just told you. Yeah.
So, why is the various people that are coming, that y'all are interacting with, their purpose in coming here is to learn English? And so what all are their roles? I mean, is it primarily the countries where we're fighting, or are there other countries that are represented and coming? And since I am not a military background here, why? Help me understand why we're funding and bringing in people from all these various countries and training
Military
them.
calls it the Joint Force Operation in the United States. They all work together, the free world countries.
Okay.
And so they train, it helps the U.S. by training them in the techniques that the U.S. use and other British and the French use. So when
We've
they
probably
get
been doing this a
together
long
in
time.
actions, and the common language is English, so they can all speak to each other.
and they're learning from the same books.
Yeah.
I mean, there's people out there from Europe. It's not only the
Okay.
countries where we're actually fighting, and there are countries, people there from Latin American countries and Asian countries, that people from Taiwan, people from Japan, people from South Korea, all practically you can name it. I mean, there's some pretty obvious ones not, like there's nobody from Russia. There were, when the Iron Curtain first fell, there were a few students that came from Russia, and then that turned into a problem, so that was stopped.
Nobody from Iran.
There's people from Poland and Armenia and all kinds of countries. We just saw a guy graduate the other day from Norway, which surprised us because the Norwegians, the Scandinavians, usually have enough English before they come, that if they're going to do a course in the States, they just go directly to the course, so it surprised us that he was here, but they're from everywhere, so that joint task force stuff can be done in a common language.
I understand. Thank you. Glad I asked that question, because there had to be something I didn't know or understand about it. What do you find the most rewarding out of this experience of doing this? Obviously, there is something in particular, because you've been doing it and doing it and doing it for a number of years.
I love the fact that we can give people who don't know the truth, that we can give them a good picture of Americans, and also that we can give them a good picture of Christians. Because in both cases, it's a pretty distorted picture in most places. Sometimes here in the United States, it's a pretty distorted picture. So
That is true.
imagine
That is true.
other countries. And the other part, we had a student from Poland one time who said to us, "Why do you do this? Do you get some kind of something? Some
Pay?
kind of," and I said, "You mean like we get paid?" And he said, "No, I know you don't get paid. You're volunteers, but do you get to use the commissary or the BX or something?" "No." "Well, then why do you do it?" And I said, "Well, you know, if we had back in our bank account all the money that we have spent over 27 years, because we've really thrown ourselves into this for 27 years. If we put it all in the bank, because we've gone to visit people and gone to graduations. Not everybody does it to that degree. You don't have to, but we have.
We fly to other parts of the states when, like, they're graduating El Paso. We're going to go to El Paso in June for 3 or 4 of them are graduating from Sergeant Major Academy. So we go to different
Fabulous. Yeah.
parts of the states.
I said, if we had all that money back in the bank account, we'd be stinking rich. But, but I said, you know what? Instead of being rich in money, we are rich in people. And that's something we can take with us.
Oh, yeah.
And so that's why we do it. We love the people that we've gotten to know. We have a rich life because of the people.
And we like developing relationships with them, getting to know them. They want to come and visit our house. Some come to church with us. They want to see where we go to church, and what we do. And I just we enjoy doing that with them.
What is their impression of, I mean, being Muslims, what's their impression of Christians before they get here and actually get to know some? What, I mean, like you were saying, the stereotype that they say of Hollywood and everyone's divorced and all of that, is that kind of the picture they have of Christians as well, or?
Yeah,
Oh,
for
okay.
one thing, they think everybody that's in the U.S. is a Christian. If you're
Oh, that's-
American, you're a
That's
Christian.
news.
Yeah. Yeah.
Wouldn't that be nice? But they are, the thing I think that they are most amazed about, Tom and I have heard the word kind or the word kindness more times since we've been doing this than we had heard in the entire rest of our lives.
Wow.
Especially the last 12 years, because we don't realize as Christians that in a lot of places, kindness is not a normal thing. If I do for you, it's because I expect you're going to do for me, and it's a payback thing. And to
Ooh.
just be kind, simply because that's what our Lord would do,
Uh-huh.
is an unknown quantity. And so they say to us all the time, you're so kind to us, thank you for your kindness. I'll tell you a funny thing that happened one time. I was driving along in the car with one of the guys, and we were talking about something, and so he says, wait just a minute, Mom, I need to tell you something. All the Afghan guys talk about you. And he said it kind of like, oh, really? I didn't show anything on me, but I thought, like, do they have weapons in their hands? Or, you know, I mean, I thought I was getting along
Yeah.
with them fine, so it just sounded kind of ominous, the way,
Uh-huh.
just his tone of voice. But I just said, oh, really? What do they say? He said, they say that before they came to the United States, they thought all Christians would go to hell. But now they know, Mom, and you are so kind to us, that they think you're going to be the first person in heaven even before people who've gone on Hajj.
Wow.
That's a change in thinking.
Mhm.
That's a huge change in thinking. And they can then go back to their countries, and maybe when they know Christians in their countries think, it's not a bad person. I mean, that's what Mom and Dad are. Okay, they're probably nice people. And it just would change perhaps the treatment toward Christians in their countries.
Wow.
Even if they're not Christians,
Mm-hmm.
they would have a different
We show enough
attitude.
example and plant enough seeds that they,
They start to think
They get the
differently.
impression that we're okay.
Mhm.
Wow. Anything else in particular you'd like to share?
I would say that if anybody has any inclination toward doing similar to what we do, you don't have to do it to the degree we do it, but doing similar, you will not be sorry. It's over the years we've had a very few, like Tom said, we've had thousands of students through our lives. Very, very few. I mean, I could probably count on one hand the ones I'd say, hope I never see that person again.
Wow.
It's been an incredible experience, and it's a wonderful gain. It's wonderful.
and they're not only men, we've had, even among the Afghans, we've had 5 or 6 women, so military. And then in other countries, there's like China and Japan and
Taiwan.
Korea, there's a lot of women military that comes. So if it's a lady that wants to work with just women military, they're available out there. The Mongolians well, we've had some wonderful lady students. In fact, her mother, who's a very good cross stitcher, taught a bunch of Mongolian ladies how to cross stitch.
Oh, fabulous.
And they took it all back to their country.
And taught one of them how to make a cathedral window quilt.
Yeah.
How to do what?
How to make a cathedral.
Cathedral.
Cathedral window quilt.
So who knows what's going on in Mongolia because of her.
Because of the quilt. Wow.
Yeah.
Interesting, interesting.
Just say don't pass up whatever opportunity God puts in front of you.
So true. If someone was, if somebody listening to this has a base in their community, who would they contact at the base to see if there is a similar type program?
The International Military Student Office. And even if they don't have a formal program, the person could say to the person in that office, I would like to be a friend to one of your international students.
Okay.
Or maybe two, you know. Sometimes it's easier if you have two because they are a little more relaxed the first time they come and stuff, and they can talk with each other too, so.
I know a lot of our San Angelo is a strong retirement community for the military, and on the holidays, especially Thanksgiving in particular, but Christmas as well, they'll call out to the base and go pick up even Americans, you know, that
they
didn't
do.
get to go home
Also,
and take them in.
another opportunity is the universities, probably one there in San Angelo.
Yes, we do. We
There's many
do.
internationals,
Yes.
and they're very lonely and open when they come here.
We have a
And
lot
so
from Korea.
You
that
can
come
make
in.
a big influence on their lives.
Let me
because-
tell you something about that too. We have friends that her brother was an administrator at a university in California. And our friends were very involved with internationals wherever they lived. But she kept telling her brother, you've got him there at your university. Reach out to him. So finally he said, okay, we're inviting this guy from China, communist China, over for dinner. He's been here for 4 years. He's about to graduate. We're going to have him over for dinner. So he came with a suitcase. And they thought, did I give him the impression he was going to spend the night or something? We didn't know what was going on. He didn't say anything. After dinner, the man went and got the suitcase, put it up on the table, opened it up, and started giving them gifts out of his suitcase. All kinds of
Oh
things.
my
gift,
gosh.
gift from China.
Gift after gift. And they said, finally, you don't have to give us all these things. We just wanted to get to know you. He said, no, I have to give you all these things. Because I was told before I left my country that I should bring some gifts to people in the United States who invite me to their home. And in 4 years, this is the first time
Wow.
I've been invited to an American home. And it would be a great shame on me to take these things home. So I
Wow.
want you to have all of them. Because he was going to graduate in a month or so.
Uh-huh.
I think that's a great shame on
Yes.
us, not
Yes.
on him.
Yeah, you can think of yourself saying, go to a university in Russia, how alone you would be, because you
Oh.
don't speak the language very well. These people.
Yeah, you know, it's the same thing when our missionaries go different places and international students and yeah, absolutely, absolutely. Any final thoughts on your part, Tom?
Well, I just love doing extra things with the students. I'm going to Africa this summer, to Chad, to visit some missionary friends, and so I've been befriending the Chadian military. I took them all to a baseball game last week, and just they loved this, learning about American baseball. But I'm building relationship because I plan to visit with their families and then when I go to Chad also. So
Oh, fabulous.
doing extra things with different students. I take some of the students fishing. I played golf with students from Japan and Korea. Just some extra things I like to do. So.
And so they're able to come and go off of the base without,
Oh, yeah.
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 Oh, wonderful.
We've even taken them on when they're like Christmas break. We took one to vacation with us up in Wyoming. Well, he had a 2-week break from helicopter school, so we. do a
Come
lot of
on,
different
let's
things.
go.
Yeah, he had a wonderful time. He was from Central America, so he'd never seen snow. So it was.
Oh, wow.
It was very interesting.
And what did he think of snow? It was cold?
He said he's a tropical boy and he enjoyed getting to see it, but he's going to go back home.
I know that feeling. Wow.
Actually, he was our first student from Honduras that we did that with. We're still in touch with him. We've been in touch with him for years. Like we met him, what, 27, 28?
27 years ago.
And we still,
Wow.
when we go to Honduras, he's the first there to visit, to greet us at the airport, you know.
Wow.
Just,
Does the internet facilitate staying in touch a whole lot easier than the old-fashioned?
on Mother's Day coming up, she'll get dozens of messages from all around the world. Because a lot of the students, Mother's Day is a very important thing for them. So.
But Skype is nice because I can talk to guys that are in Afghanistan or guys that are in Honduras or
Uh-huh.
Albania or all over the world.
See their
They can do
families.
that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And they'll put their families out, and if their kids are learning English, they say, talk to her, this is your chance to speak to a native speaker.
I know.
Very good. Very
Yeah.
good. Wonderful. Wow. Well, no telling how far that impression, that ripple effect is going of what y'all have done.
A funny one with the Skype thing happened. We had a guy here who is the head of the English language program for their military academy. And he's been here twice. He's a very, very nice man. And he took a computer home and had Skype on it and called me on Skype one night. And he's sitting in the living room, or whatever they call the living area of their house, and talking to me on Skype. And I said, "Shocker, that's a house you grew up in, right?" "Oh yeah, this is my dad's house." "Okay. So now think back to when you were 10 years old. Would you have imagined when you were 10 years old that you would sit in that room with this thing in front of you that had a screen like a television, and that you would be talking to some old lady in San Antonio, Texas?" "Oh no, Mom,
And
I've
seeing her,
never."
seeing her in
And
person.
seeing her like
Uh-huh.
on the screen. "Would you have imagined that?" "No, Mom, that would have been crazy. How would I have thought of that?" I said, "I wouldn't have imagined this 5 years ago. First of all, that I would be talking to somebody in Afghanistan,
Yeah,
and then the whole technology part of it. So
makes the world so small.
it does.
It does, it does. Well, I appreciate your time this afternoon. This has been fascinating. I appreciate the work that you're doing very much. I look forward to seeing you again and hearing more stories the next opportunity I get.
And we're gonna talk at the upcoming ACT meeting to tell them about what we're doing for, 20 minutes or something like that.
Wonderful. Very good.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you
Okay.
so much.
Thank you for coming.